Hello, Defender Nation, and welcome back to another installment of Defender Giants. Today, we have the senior enlisted leader of one of our 11 combatant commands. He is responsible for ensuring the strategic focus and synchronized efforts of more than 122,000 military and civilian warfighters, providing global air, land, and sea transportation for the Department of Defense. He is a military working dog handler by trade, graduated as DG from ALS, NCOA, and Senior NCOA, has completed the Phoenix Raven course, U.S. Army Ranger School, U.S. Army Advanced Airborne School, earned the U.S. Navy and Marine Corps Parachutist Badge, German Parachutist Badge, and Romanian Parachutist Badge. But you would never guess due to how humble and down-to-earth he is. Ladies and gentlemen, our Defender Giant guest is Command Senior Enlisted Leader for USTRANSCOM, Command Chief Master Sergeant Jason L. France. Chief, what an incredible honor to have you on Defender Giants. It is a proud moment for us all when we have defenders serving in the highest levels of leadership within our Department of Defense.
Hey, good morning, Mark, and thanks so much for having me on. I also want to take the opportunity to say thank you for what you're doing right now. No doubt you're making a huge difference in our Defender family. I had the opportunity to take a look at a couple of the other videos that are on here, and you are really getting some heavy-hitting, influential folks with some great leadership experience and perspective to share, and it's truly humbling to be a part of that list. So thanks again for reaching out.
Chief, the pleasure's all mine. Thank you for giving us some time. Let's jump right into it. What are a couple books that you have given out the most, or a couple books that have influenced your life?
I would definitely like to start with the one that I often give out the most. It's called Essentialism. It's by a gentleman named Greg McEwen, and it really breaks down how important it is to separate what is truly important and the things you should really focus on from the things that might be a distractor in your life or not have as much heavy-hitting impact. And as we all grow through our leadership journey and enjoy the opportunity to serve in positions of greater leadership, it becomes more and more challenging to separate the two sometimes. Very easy to get distracted by the things that don't add value versus the things that truly add value at a larger scale. And this book is very helpful in giving you an outside of the military perspective on this. And I have given this out to some of my mentors and some of the folks that have reached out to me as well over the years, because I read it probably 5 or 6 years ago, and it was definitely insightful and definitely made me pause and reflect and think about how I lead, how I achieve harmony between work and other life commitments. That book has been very helpful. And I do have a couple others. One, especially for our young leaders, whether officer or enlisted or civilian, it's called Tribes. It's by a gentleman named Seth Godin. It's a very short book, a quick read, as a matter of fact, and it really talks about the importance of teams and the importance of finding leaders that might not by name be in leadership positions, but the value that people across our tribes or our groups bring to the collective. So definitely recommend this, especially for our young aspiring leaders. And a book that I recently finished, that this is one of those wow books. You know, I wish I would have seen or known about this back probably as a tech sergeant or a master sergeant. It's called Radical Candor, and the author's name is Kim Scott. And you know, on the cover, it says, "Be a kick-ass boss without losing your humanity." And it really breaks down and has some useful things that make you think, some useful tips, for lack of a better way to put that, about the human element of leadership and about the importance of being truthful and, by the name, being candid with your people, with the desired outcome of being more productive. It talks a bit about talent management, about pushing the right folks for the right job at the right time. And it also talks about the importance of having those folks within your organizations or within your formations that don't necessarily need to promote to add value. And I'll talk about this promotion thing a little bit more later on in the following questions. But those are the 3 books that not have made the huge impact in my life that you asked. One did, but some of the recent things that I've read that hopefully all the defenders watching this video will find helpful.
Essentialism, Tribes, and Radical Candor. I appreciate you that you brought some recommendations that don't really get talked about a lot. You really sold me on Radical Candor. I'm going to download that book today. One thing that you pointed out that really struck a chord with me was you don't need to promote in order to add value. I really like that. Next question, Chief. What advice would you give to a fired up cadet or tech school student about to enter the Operational Air Force?
Now that's a great question. Actually, there are 4 pieces that I wrote down, help me keep track of my comments here. The first being relationships matter. And the earlier you figure this out, the better off you will be. Because as your leadership roles continue to grow and increase responsibility, as the size of the formation in which you have the privilege to lead and serve starts to grow, those relationships that you build over time, you will see will become extremely important in your effectiveness as a leader and your ability to take care of your people, because it really is all about the people, all about the connections you make, the time that you invest in folks in those relationships will really pay dividends, not only to yourself, but the people that you will serve as a leader. Another piece of advice, especially for our younger folks, is to be really good at what you do. Work on your skill, work on perfecting what it is that you do right now at the base that you are at. Oftentimes folks get overly concerned about what's next. What is my next job? What is my next move going to look like? Where am I going to go? What challenges lie ahead for me? And what I have learned is oftentimes the folks that are very focused on what's next, you miss out on the great things that are right in front of you, whether that is the amazing airmen that you'll have the opportunity to work with and serve, being involved in their lives, being so focused that you don't see the opportunity that might be right in front of you that is a great opportunity because you may be overly concerned about what is next for you. So please really think about getting the best value and working hard in what it is that you're doing right now. And the last thing I will say on here, there's a lot of different ways we could go with this. This is, again, a great question, is about mentors. Now, we know that it's important to pick good mentors and have a network of those folks that are there for you when you need them, that you lean on and they lean on you. But I will say a couple things. One, it's very important to keep a group of mentors that are close to you in your grade and rank, because they will have some very valuable experiences to share. And I'll use the example as a Chief Master Sergeant. I have the opportunity, and it's a privilege, when folks reach out to look for some mentorship. And I love those opportunities, and I love to be able to share with them the things that have worked for me in my life at work, my life at family, and the other things that have made me who I am. But I also have to be very mindful of the fact that if I'm talking to a senior airman, a young lieutenant, a staff sergeant, a captain, we are very far from each other. I don't say that in a hierarchical sense, that I'm above anyone at all, but yes, I was a staff sergeant. I was a staff sergeant 40 years ago. What staff sergeants today are experiencing are far different and far more complex than what I experienced as a staff sergeant. And you can pick any other rank as well. So the perspective that I will bring will probably be at the level in which I serve, at the strategic level, and talk about the importance of an enterprise. But some of the most meaningful mentorship engagements will be with folks that are either of the same rank or one or two ahead of you that have that closeness to the issues that you individually are facing right now. So I would say really strike a balance in who you choose to be your mentors. And I would offer to you that it's a good idea to go up and down the rank structure outside of your particular lane, because there are very different communities within the Defender community, and gather some experiences and insights from folks outside of what it is that you're doing right now. And I promise you that will make you a better person and a better leader. And the last thing I'll say on mentors is be critical of them. Just because one person or two people have enjoyed success, however they define that, does not mean that that recipe will work for everyone. And what I would also say is when you develop and engage with your mentors, look at the things that you appreciate and can relate to about that person, and then think about those things that maybe you might do a little bit differently when you're in that position or you're in that point. Grab the best from a large group of mentors and the best things that you connect with. Take that and bring it into yourself. And those things that you might do a little bit differently, doesn't make somebody a bad person, but if you make the choice that you're going to lead a little bit differently, talk a little bit differently, communicate a little bit differently, that's all goodness. But to be able to get the best out of a whole bunch, you got to reach out to them. Again, great question, Mark. Thanks.
Chief, you really brought some great advice on that response. Relationships matter. Be really good at what you do and pick good mentors that are close to you. You know, I've seen brand new A1Cs go direct to that master sergeant trying to get advice, trying to get on the chief's calendar, and bypassing that senior airman that just went below the zone, or bypassing that staff sergeant or tech sergeant that's running that element, firing away on all cylinders. I think that's some really great advice that we can give down to every level, is pick good mentors that are a little bit closer to us. Next question. On the flip side, what is some bad advice you see given out in our profession?
And there are a couple of them that stick out in my mind. The biggest one being, it's business, it's not personal. That is absolutely untrue at every level that I can think of. We as leaders are in the business of people. The things that we do, the decisions we make, the things that we have to execute are impacting someone at some level. And when we are talking about people, that makes it personal. Now, this leads me to the discussion of trust. Getting used to having hard conversations will be something that's very important to you as you continue to develop as a leader. And what makes those difficult conversations and those difficult decisions a little bit easier is the trust that your people have in you as their leader, and the trust that those around you have as a peer, as a mentor, as whatever role that you are filling in that person's life. It really revolves around trust. So, understanding and expressing humility that every decision we make at some level affects somebody, and that even though it is business, it is also personal every single time. Understanding that will help you frame the way in which you communicate challenges and problems and things that we need to come together to overcome or tackle. And it will also, when you have to, as a leader, make the hard call. If you have 5 less than desirable options and you have to pick the one that has the least impact, the least negative impact, and the best available outcome, you are going to have some hard conversations with folks, and understanding that it's personal, and also understanding and having that element of trust that your people understand that you have their best interest in mind will make some of those challenges that we face a little bit easier to work through. It's never going to be easy, but some things you can make a little bit easier through understanding the personal aspect of it. The second piece of advice, or the second statement that I hear that I don't particularly buy on, is the canned statement of, this is what you need to do to get promoted. When you take a group of folks of the same rank, especially when we're talking about senior NCOs of any of the 3 senior NCO ranks, and you line those folks up, there is not one clear path that led all of those people to the same result. the experiences that I have throughout my career are different than the other chief master sergeants that were promoted the same year that I was promoted. So I would offer a bit of caution when you take the advice of this is what you need to do to get promoted. There are many things that we all know as airmen that we need to cover down on, that we need to be up to speed on, we need to be smart on. There are some requirements that we need to take care of to be eligible to promote and to promote. But exercise some caution if one of your mentors is saying, hey, this is what you need to do. This is the thing you need to do to get promoted. Because I will also offer that there have been times throughout my career that folks have raised their eyebrows a little bit on assignment decisions I have made, things that I have chosen to do to maintain and keep myself out of my comfort level. And there was a little bit of risk in that. But I followed my heart. I did what I thought was right. I did everything I could to take care of those around me, and it worked out. But my path is very different than anybody else's path. And you will see the more time that you have having these discussions in these career counseling sessions, that there really isn't one path or one way to get promoted. So use a little bit of caution when you hear that.
Wow, 100% the truth. It's personal. It's always personal. People say it's just business. Just don't get overly involved. Don't have passion for whatever it is that we're dealing with. No, we're dealing with airmen's lives. We're dealing with people here. So I 100% agree with that. Second part, again, there's no cookie cutter path to success. I always like to live by do what you love, do what inspires you, and follow your life path. And if you do that, you're always going to be successful. Next question. What have you gotten better at saying no to?
Now, before I get to the solid answer to the question, I will kind of lay out how I look at things and how I decide what to do, which allows me a better insight on the things that I should or have to say no to. The world I live in right now, in the leadership position that I hold, there are a lot of competing interests. There are a lot of very high level things that the organization in which I serve are involved in. But within that, every single thing cannot be important right now, every single day. So as the senior enlisted leader of the organization that I'm a part of, I will look at things and say, okay, what is it? How can I complement and get after my commander's intent? What is it? What is my role in this particular thing that we are doing? And if there are a number of things that our command is working on at the same time, I will look and see where is it that I and I alone will add the most value to the organization or have the largest impact on the people I serve as a senior enlisted leader. And balance that with executing and communicating my commander's intent throughout our organization. That gives me a pretty good idea of where I need to spend my time. And then balance that with how we measure readiness as I look across in our case, the United States Transportation Command enterprise. When I look across our conveyances, what is going on within our component commands, down to the individual airframe, we'll just use that as an example, or platform level. If I see there is, if we're experiencing some challenges in one particular wing or one particular brigade, I will spend time there because that will be the best use of my time. And it's definitely a balancing act. Now, with regard to what have I gotten better at saying no to, I will say that's speaking engagements. And although I love speaking engagements because that gives me the opportunity to share 30 plus years of experiences with our young folks across the Joint Force, to include the Defender community, I came to realize a few years ago that maybe I wasn't getting this right 100% of the time as a chief. especially after the Air Force presented the opportunity and pushed me in the direction of the command chief lane, stepping away from the Defender career field. Again, I love the opportunity to engage at any level, whether that's a ceremony, whether that's a speaking engagement, all of those things. I absolutely love that. But what I found as I've had the opportunity to progress through different leadership positions is that really the value in some of these things lies at those, if we're talking about chiefs, lies at those chiefs that are right there, that are closest to the airmen on the base, that they will see day in and day out, that they have immediate access to and can engage with those airmen after that speech, after that presentation, that those airmen over time can see that chief master sergeant in various different situations, see them when they're having a good day, when they're not having a good day, when they are at their best, when times are tough and they're exercising good, hard leadership and setting that example. Now, when I go out to an installation now to visit, and specific to the question, when I go out to an installation to speak at an award ceremony, an induction ceremony, or any of those types of things, again, I enjoy it, but basically I'm a guy from out of town that shows up, and yeah, we're going to get a lot out of our time together if I'm on the installation for a couple days before I speak. I go up on stage, I'm going to say a few things, and then I'm going to leave. And I would hope that during our engagement, there is an opportunity for the folks in the crowd or the folks that I engage with to get a little bit as far as mentorship, as far as, guidance from, our organization, as far as value, I'll just put it that way. But again, I'm going to leave. Where I think, especially when we're talking about some of our younger leaders or our emerging leaders on installations, that if one of those chief master sergeants or another leader from that base gets up there, they have seen what those organizations have gone through and those people have gone through to get that award. They have seen those people progress and get rewarded for those promotions. So bottom line, I think in many cases, the most value that people are going to get out of folks coming out to talk and engage with them is going to be from folks at the local level. So what I have done is now I'm much more critical on the invitations that I receive. And if I have a personal connection with someone who is being recognized, or I have a connection and have been a previous member of one of those organizations, then I will look at it a little bit harder. But at this point now, it is a rare opportunity for me to have the bandwidth to break away and do those things, and I really have to look at the true value that it adds to the organization. But
first off, I cannot imagine the workload level at a combatant command, but I was still really surprised by your answer about turning down speaking engagements. But I think you're onto something. If we give some of these opportunities to the local chiefs, seniors, or even motivated master sergeants, I think it would be good for the local airmen to see them get up and speak in front of their peers and wing leadership. And in addition, it's grooming them to be that next future leader. So I think that's great. Next question. What do you do when you start to feel overwhelmed or lose focus?
And before I get to that, to answer that question, let me back up just a little bit and talk about some of the things I do to make sure I don't get to that point where I feel overwhelmed or lose focus. And it really stems from the routine that I follow. I am very cautious and careful about how I manage between my commitment at work and my commitment as a husband, father, and my commitment to myself to ensure that, again, I'm not getting overwhelmed or losing focus. And again, that really comes down to having a strict routine, which includes reading, which includes fitness, which includes the time that I need to recharge so my head is still in the game and I don't lose that focus. I'm also very aware, part of this is establishing boundaries. And I know that this will be more challenging for some folks than others because, we all live in different worlds and have different commitments. So there are things, and I understand that I might have a little bit more or a lot more control over how I manage my day, my time, and my hours. I get that. But some of these things, I believe that at any level, can be executed to some extent. And one of the biggest things that helps me is establishing boundaries. Boundaries on when I will allow work to creep into the time that I have with my family, or how I stay connected with work if I'm on leave or I'm off. And bottom line, I'm very, very strict on that. I will take care of the things I need to take care of in the office. Then I will turn that off. I will go home and I will make the best of the time that I have with my family. I will be present, not just in the room, but mentally in the room as well, and focused on what it is that is important in their life. And what I have found is that sticking to those boundaries has significantly reduced my stress, significantly reduced the ability for me to get overwhelmed, because with that, those boundaries have come predictability. And here's an example. When I get home from work, I simply do not, unless there's an extreme circumstance, I'm not over there on my phone. I'm not on my computer getting the play-by-play. I have my notifications turned off. Yes, the phone is still on. If my commander or our operations center needs to get a hold of me, they absolutely can, and I will answer. But what I've found is focusing on what recharges me, and that is time with my family, has made me more effective, even though that might sound a little bit counterintuitive to, hey, it might be a little bit easy to, in the morning, get up and, spend an hour, hour and a half getting ahead of things. Well, I would offer that, at least in my perspective, what I have found in that particular case, a better use of my time could be journaling. I spend a lot of time journaling, writing down those things that I woke up thinking about, or those thoughts that keep returning. And what I have found is that allows me to better understand what is really a stressor in my life and get after that. Now, what I do if I get to the point where I'm unfocused or feel overwhelmed, and I alluded to it earlier, I spend more time with my family. The value that I find in having a cup of coffee with my wife in the morning and just talking about things, not about work, is incredible. The time I will spend with my 15-year-old son, going out for a drive, just him and I, and just talking about what's important in his world right now. Same thing with our 10-year-old son, to spend 5 minutes to hear what's on his mind and to see or hear what the world is through his eyes really charges me up and gets me balanced, gets me grounded, gets me focused, and gets me back in the fight, basically, if I get to that point. Some of the other things I do is specific to fitness. I'll beast myself on the Peloton bike. I'll pick up heavy things, which of course I recommend to everybody. Or I will go for a run or a ruck in unfavorable conditions, to where you go out there, you get yourself uncomfortable, whether that's hot or cold. We'll use a cold example. I will get a lot out of the experience of going out with something heavy on my back, to where my feet hurt, my hands are numb, and my face stings. That absolutely recharges me when I get back to doing some of those physically hard things that I no longer do as a job or have the opportunity to do as often as I like. So time with the family, and then focus on fitness. And I mentioned it earlier, the third thing I'll throw in there is that journaling piece. I keep it, there's an app that I use that I find very helpful, and I ask myself a few questions every day. What did I wake up thinking about? What is something that I'm grateful for? And then on the reflection side, maybe at the end of the day, what is something that I could have done differently to make today better? And then I finish it up with just thoughts where I'll just freestyle for a minute, get things out of my head. And what I find when I go back and read these things is, oftentimes there's some common themes, and that really provides me some focus and opportunity to look at those things and see if there's something a little bit more to it. Oftentimes there is. I find out, why those things keep coming up. I get after it. I complete those things, finish those things, or discuss those things. And then I move on with a clear mind, able to focus on, or get ready for what's coming next. So,
Chief, you have some great habits and routines. The more leaders that I talk to, the more I start to see similarities about them being deliberate, journaling, meditating, and being purposeful. Secondly, you talked about a run or a ruck in unfavorable conditions, spoken like a true ranger. But I concur. Making yourself uncomfortable really does great things to help refocus us. Chief, the floor is yours for any closing comments.
Just wanted to share a few things, and these are based on observations of 30 plus years in the Air Force as a defender. The first one is change is going to be constant. I could have never imagined 30 years ago as an Airman Basic what I would experience on my Air Force journey or where we would be today in our Air Force. And it's been an absolutely amazing ride. And the common thread right there is change is going to be constant. You will see through your journey as well, new things coming out, new ways of doing things, different technology, different ways of doing things. You will meet different people. You will have assignments. Change is going to be constant. And those folks that, in my observation, have been most successful are the ones that can wrap themselves around that, embrace change, and leverage change, because with change, of course, also comes opportunity. Another thing I'd like to share, and I think a couple of the other folks that have been interviewed on this platform have brought up something similar to this, but it's important to hear it again. Humility and optimism are going to be two of the most valuable characteristics that you will be able to leverage throughout your career. Those optimistic leaders that see the goodness in, back to my previous point, in that change are going to make things so much better. On the humility side, their ability to connect with young people and empathy, to understand the position that they are in and affect change for the people that they serve as leaders is going to make a big difference. Another thing is, your time is the most valuable thing, the most valuable gift that you can give someone. And as you continue the Air Force journey, and those of you that are, either in the middle or near the end of that Air Force journey, I think you'll agree that the time that you invest in those folks, whether it's a 5-minute snapshot to hear them out on something, or just that you show interest in them, those people will remember that. And years down the road, you will see when somebody comes up on the net and, hey, I met you at this, and you allowed me the time to express myself. You were engaged in the conversation, and I really appreciate that. So it's clear over time that those engagements are really important to people. Another thing that I would like to share, and I've heard it put in different words, but a good piece of advice is deal with the situation you have right now, not the situation you wish you had. Sometimes we got to deal with some challenging things with the people, the money, the time, and the circumstances we have right in front of us. The problems, the complex problems we face today, we can't wish away. We're not getting more money. We're not getting more people. We're not getting more time. The most effective leaders that I have the opportunity and honor to serve with are those leaders that take it all, balance that optimism I talked about, balance that humility, understanding that this is personal, it's not just business, and they make the best of the situation that they have right there. And to kind of the last point that I have is to revisit, my earlier discussion on mentorship. And I really want to break this down into to 3 significant pieces. Now, for our young NCOs, some of our airmen, and some of our senior NCOs as well, take care of our officers. Mentor them, shape them, invest in them, and I promise you, we will all reap the benefits. I've had the opportunity to work with some great officers throughout my career that I had the privilege of investing in, especially when they were young, and to watch their leadership journey and watch them over a long period of time. Once they get to a point where they have a large or can make a large impact, positive or negative, on our force. And I would offer to you that the best ones that I've seen out there are those that had the investment given to them, that enlisted, put the time into them and cared for them, watched out for them, and had the hard conversations with them. Those are the best. The ones that, may have gotten sideways a little bit. As you look back, again, I would offer that maybe they didn't have such a good NCO experience their first couple rounds or their first couple assignments. And maybe that stings a little bit. But it's never too late, to take that opportunity to invest in our folks, our officers, if someone else hasn't. For our officers, hold our NCOs accountable, especially our senior NCOs. If there is a challenge with a senior NCO, especially a senior NCO or NCO Corps in general, you need to hold them accountable for their actions. They need to live up to the expectations in leadership and job performance that is expected of a senior non-commissioned officer, because there are times that I have seen where our officers are concerned with reputation, concerned with their future, and that is very important. That comes to the humility, that comes to the trust that I talked about earlier. But that does not mean that you should not hold our senior NCOs and our NCOs accountable for their actions. Sometimes you got to be bold, sometimes it's going to be uncomfortable, sometimes it's going to be hard, it's going to be ugly. And these are rare circumstances. But when the time comes to do that, we all need you to step up to that task and make it happen. And a little piece for our civilian defenders: you add such incredible value to the defender family. Your years of experience, your expertise, the history that many of you bring are valuable. And I would ask that you remain focused on keeping that recency and relevancy. Because, and I've said it a couple times before, but I'll use it in this context, things change so rapidly in our Air Force and in the defender career field that what you may have experienced 10, 15, 20 years ago when you were a master sergeant or you were a lieutenant colonel are far different than what our lieutenant colonels and our master sergeants are experiencing today. There is a great opportunity there to leverage the experience that you have and the history that you have and depth of understanding with what's going on in today's environment. A huge opportunity there to make a great impact. And I will offer that some of the best civilian defenders that I have seen that have that prior service experience are the ones that have the ability to maintain that relevancy, maintain that recency, and not fall back to the position of, hey, when I was a master sergeant, or hey, when I was a lieutenant colonel 15, 20 years ago, this is how we did it. And there's some value in that, but I would also offer that there's some balance in there, and that would be, of course, greatly appreciated. And that's just going to add to the contribution that you and those around you that are civilian defenders bring to the fight. Those are the things that I wanted to cover down on today. Mark, again, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the great questions. Thank you for reaching out. To my Defender family as I get ready to retire next year. I will look back on, at that point, over 31 years of service with nothing but love in my heart. I'll be walking out with my heart full. The Defender community raised me. I owe everything that I have on the professional side to the Defender community. The hard times, the good times, the bad times all made me who I am. Complemented by an amazing family that I have now. I'm walking away with a big smile on my face, or will be walking away with a big smile on my face, and look forward to the opportunity for the remaining time I have to hopefully get a little bit more time with my Defender family. And I will definitely miss you, but I will always be right there for anybody that's up on the net. Thanks again, Mark, and take care, everybody.
Chief, this was a really great interview. Thank you so much for taking some time for us. Thank you for your over 3 decades of service. You will be missed. We all wish you well on your next adventure. And to all the Defenders out there, thank you for watching. See you next time.